Hey guys, welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I'm your co-host here, Ashton, with my awesome co-host, Zach, and we have a special guest, Alexis Kraft. Uh, we had some scheduling stuff happen over the holidays. Everyone gets busy. Was supposed to have her on after it would have been a really great pod, Alexis. I feel like it would have been fantastic to talk about the Bucks game.
Yeah.
Instead, me and Zach got the pleasure to go witness this game in person. It was a fun game to watch. The kind of environment not as much fun, being very rainy and very cold. How you doing, Alexis? And first off, how was your Thanksgiving? And did you eat a lot of food like me and Zach probably did?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be able to kind of hang out with you guys and talk about the Rams. My Thanksgiving was good. It was pretty nice day, can't complain. Watched a lot of football, ate a lot of food, as one does. On Thanksgiving to the point of where, you kind of are questioning your life choices afterwards. It's usually
Yep.
me. Kind of make my way to the couch, suffer, why ask myself why I did that, and then eat more later. So that was my Thanksgiving. It was pretty good. Some good football games as well. But yeah, it was pretty good. Did you guys have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, mine was great. Same thing as you. You eat the food and then it's just still sitting there as you're watching those football games. You just keep going back for more and more and more until, man, that night, it's definitely
Yeah.
done so.
Yeah, my family has a like mac and cheese competition where we get two separate mac and cheeses and you're like going back and we vote on it at the end of the night. So that's
Hmm.
kind of fun to go back and eat more of both, and it just makes you want to like take your time and consider your decision. So
Yeah.
very delicious. Uh the sweets were really good, had a lot of pies and stuff, so it was a fantastic meal and fun time.
Love to hear it.
So what about this game? This game against Carolina. Like we've mentioned, me and Ashton did go there. We were there live. You got to watch it, from the comfort of your own home, which was
Hmm.
probably way better than our experience. Well, our experience in the rain and the cold. Um, the games felt pretty good for the Rams for the most part. It's really those three turnovers that really just did us in. What was your kind of overall theme of the game?
Yeah, it felt like it started off relatively, strong. I know that the second offensive drive was that, first interception kind of off the deflection, which was kind of deflating. Um, because Matthew Stafford goes and he breaks the record, Tom Brady's record, and you think it's going great, and then they kind of have that fluky play with, the ball hitting the helmet of, I'm forgetting which player it was, but that led to the Nick Scott interception in the end zone. And you think, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but weird things happen. Um, the next offensive drive, the interception to Jackson, which leads to, I believe, the pick six, if I'm not mistaken, was that drive. And so then that's when you kind of start to panic a little bit. The rain starts coming down a little bit more. I thought the second quarter went well for the Rams, but it was just kind of in the second half. I felt like the Rams just could not find a good rhythm. I thought it was interesting to me, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. The deviation from the run game, which is not entirely uncommon from Sean McVay. That is something I think that, most Rams fans acknowledge that happens at times. And you look at Kyron Williams and Blake Corum were having a lot of success against Carolina on the ground, and it felt like for whatever reason, I don't know if it was what it was, but it felt like they really stopped running the ball at a point that was weird. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because I felt like, to me, when I noticed that happen, that's when I started to worry about what the offensive game plan was.
Yeah, so my two thoughts, watching it live. One, I didn't even see Kyron go off the field, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it, with this ankle injury that he's kind of dealing with this past week, and only leaving it I mean, yes, we have Ronnie Rivers, but he doesn't really see any action as far as, running back role goes. But it's also Sean McVay has Matthew Stafford, and I think that's always where Sean McVay and Stafford himself goes back to is like, we're going to put it in the hands of who they think is the best player, and it's Matthew Stafford, whether we like it or not. I know, Alexis, me and you are very big Kyren Williams fans and would love for him to, get more touches and things like that. But yeah, it just always seems to go back to like, you got to put it in Stafford's hands and he's the one who's going to make the plays, which doesn't always work in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I would say from my point of view, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Panthers were really kind of begging the Rams to throw on them, and our execution was slightly off on a lot of these plays. You could also say unlucky, but the timing also causes the unluck, right? When you're slightly off, the ball is slightly misplaced a little bit. I felt like Stafford, especially, you didn't really see any deep shots outside of one missed deep potential touchdown. So I just think the defense went into the game basically saying you're going to have to beat us with your arm, and we had success, just not enough success to kind of overcome the fact that defense probably had the worst game of the season for themselves. And then I would also say, Blake Corum had his best game of the season. Kyron was running. I think he was running really well before whatever injury he got, and then he did come back, right? It's kind of hard to tell when you're there, because they do look very similar, and it's harder to see the numbers. But for most part, it looked like you could tell he was not 100% when Kyron was running. And when it's just Corum and then you're down for the rest of the game, it's kind of hard to go back to the run. At least that's my diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Corum, he had 7 catches, averaging 11.6 yards per carry. Even Kyren Williams with 13 carries was averaging 5.5 yards per carry. So the run game was working. They just moved away from that. And I don't know if they just did it because, when you're kind of, I wouldn't even say you're down, because they were pretty much evenly matched the whole time. A lot of times they tend to go pass heavy when they're down a lot, or down a score and a half or 2 scores. So it was just kind of odd, especially when you're in that rainy environment. You think that the run game would be, to your benefit, and they just moved away from it.
Yeah, I think and I don't obviously know, for sure, but I think it could also just be that the pass game has become such a part of this offensive identity this season in kind of a revitalized way. I think with like Devontae Adams and kind of the season that Matthew Stafford's having. So I think maybe just, when you're so used to focusing on utilizing Stafford and getting him hot, when the run game's working, it might just be overlooked, or maybe it's an oversight. And, in the second half, there was only one offensive drive that ended in a punt. And well, there was basically 2 offensive drives that didn't end in a touchdown. One was a punt and one was the Matthew Stafford fumble. So, the Rams were, with the opportunity that they were given offensively, still kind of making it happen. But as, you guys alluded to earlier, I think the defense couldn't get off the field. I mean, in the third quarter alone, there was one offensive drive for Carolina and then one for the Rams that ended in a punt. I mean, Carolina had the ball so long because they were running the ball a lot and they were grinding it out with Dowdle and Hubbard, and our defense just could not stop them. And I think that, that was kind of unfortunately the story of the game, is like it was a pretty demoralizing game on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it kind of limited what the Rams were able to do offensively. And then when the Rams got the ball offensively, it just, maybe too little too late. And, maybe they just, I don't know, they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense, what we're talking about them is I I feel like this whole season, they tend to stay on the field way too long, but they always seem to give up either no points or 3 points. And this time they gave up 3 touchdowns, and so that was really, I think, the biggest difference from what we've seen in the offense the first several weeks to now to this past game was the amount of touchdowns they let Carolina have. I know one of them, and then plus the pick six didn't help things at all.
Yeah, and the weird thing about Carolina this game was it wasn't like they were like averaging crazy amounts. It was a lot of chunk plays. They were either not doing anything or doing a lot. And it was the most explosives we have seen against this team, probably besides the Colts game. Like a very similar type of just giving up big passing plays. A lot of big screen plays were like very pivotal against the Panthers doing that against these Rams. And it was kind of funny because when me and Zach previewed the game, I said if I was Carolina, the 2 people I would give the most touches would be Hubbard and Dowdle. And they did that. It's like the first game they've done that in like 4 or 5 games. And of course it's against us. But they kind of made us pay, and a lot of their third downs too weren't even like third and shorts. It was like third and long. We would just like give it up with like soft coverage and stuff like that. I really think they got afraid of giving up a big long touchdown for some reason early in this game, and the coverage was very soft for most of this game. And then we can also talk about Emmanuel Forbes and the kind of regression there. At least with this game, he got beat a few times and it did not look great by far.
Yeah, I thought that he had a bad game. And he's been playing really well, and I think that we've seen a lot of, good development from Forbes, but he struggled this game. I just think the defense as a whole really struggled. You mentioned kind of the soft coverage. It felt like they weren't they just were playing very maybe cautious or unsure of what Carolina was going to do. And I just think getting off the field on those third downs was a struggle for them. And they let Bryce Young at times kind of catch him off guard and in a way that I didn't expect, honestly, going into the game.
Yeah.
So that was, frustrating to see. And I know it was an East Coast game, rainy game. Maybe they were overcompensating with their defensive coverage, trying to account for that. But I mean, really, on the ground, even alone between Dowdle and Hubbard, I mean, they just struggled. And, you had Puna Ford, who's, I think, our best run defender, honestly, was kind of in and out with injuries. So I don't know. It was just one of those games that, unfortunately can happen, where it just felt very fluky and very out of character for the Rams.
Do you think that, we've said kind of since the beginning that of our defense, our secondary is kind of our weakest link of the defense. Do you think that they were exposed this week, especially with Quentin Lake being out?
I do. I think they're trying to figure out their identity at the moment without Quentin Lake. I mean, it can't be understated how big of a impact player he is. I think is a leader in that secondary. And you had Witherspoon come back, right? And so now you're trying to fit a new piece in there. You're missing Lake. I think Carolina did a really good job of kind of confusing the Rams secondary when they already were maybe a little bit vulnerable, already in the conditions. And we talk about like Forbes, right, and just getting beat. And, it just felt like Carolina had their way kind of with the secondary, which was unfortunate. And I think they'll figure it out, hopefully, going forward. But yeah, I think without Lake, kind of there's some role players that they need to figure out, and they kind of need to figure out what's going on back there.
Yeah, the nickel DB position is definitely something that hopefully, we can either get Lake back or have someone grow into that real quickly, because you saw like Jalen Coker just go off.
Yeah.
He had 4 receptions for 74 yards, got a long touchdown, or 20 or like 19 yarder. But it's definitely, from the defensive point of view, kind of disappointing, especially after like how great they played against the Bucks. And I know the Bucks were a little shorthanded, But this is a Carolina team that, even though they're a little hot and cold, especially at home, they've been hot. I still don't think they should have been able to execute as smoothly as they did in certain plays. I know we got them to third and fourth down a lot. We can very, let's just make that clear. Like, the defense wasn't atrocious. They got them third down and fourth down a lot. They just couldn't get the finishing dagger in a lot of these drives. And they just kept on letting them convert. And I feel like sometimes these coverages they're just interesting play calls. I don't know if I disagree or agree with them. I understand the concept of not wanting to give up explosives, but this is a game you still gave up explosives, even though you have soft coverage. So,
Yeah, yeah, it was really frustrating to watch. It just felt, very soft defensively, and but I mean, you bring up a good point too. We get them to third down a lot, and we also only lost by like 3 points, right? It was a 3 point game, so the defense didn't completely fold and just completely roll over, but it just didn't. They didn't have their typical game, and they kind of gave up just some of those explosives and those chunk plays that we're not really used to seeing this defense give up, especially in the secondary, which was really frustrating because the 3 points like that we lost by. I mean, I firmly believe we should have won this game regardless. After everything that happened, it just still felt like the Rams were the better team. They weren't on Sunday, obviously, but watch what we know the Rams can do. I just believe they should have won that game.
I
They
mean,
couldn't finish it out.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, even with the 3 turnovers, I mean, the Rams were marching down the field. I mean, they were taking, other than that one drive in the third quarter, they were marching up and down the field. And this game could have been, we could have been talking about a game that was, 38 to 21 or something like that, and we would have been completely different about how this team played or how the defense would have played. Yes, they may have gave up 3 touchdowns, but they were keeping it. They weren't letting them, run all over them. But because of the 3 turnovers, it really puts them kind of a little bit more in a vulnerable spot. So it's a weird game because, like I said, I think the offense played really, really well. Puka's catch, I mean, that thing was freaking unbelievable. How
Insane.
he's able, I mean, he does this each and every year, multiple times where he has the catch of the year, and it's just amazing what that guy can do. It's insane.
yeah, from our angle, I didn't think he caught it until he got back up and he still had the ball. I was just like, "There's no way." It looked like it was. Zach made this point before we started recording. It looked like it was going to get intercepted again, undercut, exactly like how the pick six went.
It was crazy to watch live. My brain didn't compute it at first. Like I just figured it was an incompletion. But yeah, I mean, as Zach said, he makes these catches all the time, and he's just so good. And yeah, also to your point, I mean, the offense really was just marching down the field, and I thought playing really well. And I think it was like the first quarter and the fourth quarter just struggled. And you had the 2 interceptions in the first quarter, the first one being the helmet deflection, which was just really unfortunate, and then the pick six, and then at the end of the game, the Matthew Stafford fumble. It just yeah, all of that, even all of that happening, I still felt like the Rams should have found a way to win. And I think it just came down to really that Carolina was able to expose the defense on some of those drives when we should have been getting them off the field on third down, and they kind of were able to fool them. So it's just unfortunate. And again, just the 3 point loss, but still just brutal in a game that you should have pulled out.
Yeah, and the rough thing is, and we can talk about this for a little bit, is the Rams would have been the 1 seed in the NFC if they had won this, and they would have been a game ahead. I think now, I don't think we can get the tiebreaker over the Bears if both teams win out. So you got to hope the Bears lose. I mean, we have tiebreakers over Seattle, so. But then again, like I feel like we could have had a good margin for error if we had beat the Panthers, but we didn't. And you know, if you go into Arizona and you end up losing that game, now like you're the 1 seed is bye most likely, and then the division is gonna basically. Uh, I'm pretty sure by then we would lose tiebreaker with Seattle, unless if we beat them and they didn't win another game.
Yeah, it is just, it's a good point because like with a loss, in the seeding, going into this game and, you can't lose games like this when you are in a division with like Seattle and the 49ers who are also doing really well. And, we've got a
Yeah.
game against Seattle in Seattle coming up, which will, be tough. It's always a tough environment to go to Seattle. And we're going to play Detroit, who, we all saw play last night. Very good team, as well. So you've got those, I think, are the two biggest games for the Rams coming up in terms of just schedule and opponent. And then, yeah, you have to now hope that the Bears kind of drop a few and that we're able to essentially win out. So it's a brutal enough loss already when you lose a game that you feel you should have won and that you could have won. And when you're in this position, but then knowing that you've got some big games coming up and now you kind of have to rely on some other teams to lose. It's never fun to not kind of feel like you're in control of your own destiny, but we'll just have to see what happens, I guess. But yeah, I think that 1 seed is going to be it's going to be interesting to see if the Rams can pull off getting that back. I think, yeah, we're kind of dependent right now on Chicago.
So, quick question, Alexis: are you someone who believes in like being the 1 seed doesn't really help you? It can even hurt you in that following week, or are you someone like, no, you don't want to have to worry about losing in the wild card? You skip a week. You only need 3 wins instead of 4. Like, where do you land on that kind of thought process for the 1 seed?
I think I think if you have an opportunity to be the 1 seed, you always want to be the 1 seed. I don't think a lot of people I think are like, well, it hurts to have the week off. I don't necessarily believe that. Because I think it also plays into who you're playing, right? And the wild card, you have a better chance of playing a team that you're more evenly matched with. That might be a tougher game. You get the 1 seed, potentially, you're playing a team that you would rather see in the playoffs. So I typically tend to believe you want to be the 1 seed, but I also don't panic if you're not. I don't think it's the end all be all. I just think the odds are more in your favor that way. Um, but it also just depends, I think, on how the other seeding in the division falls, because sometimes you can have a team be a 2 seed and a team be a 7 seed, and you think, I'm kind of more intimidated by the 7 seed, actually. Maybe we played the 7 seed already that season and had a bad game against them. Maybe we steadily beat the number 2 seed and we typically do good against them. So it really just depends. But I think it would be nice for the Rams to be the 1 seed. Um, and I think, yeah, just home field advantage is also huge in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to get the NFC title or for your divisional title. You need that home field advantage for sure. I think that's most important, and then secondarily, I think getting that number 1 seed for that bye, I think is also next up.
Yeah, you kind of look at the who's going to be in the wild card race. You're talking about Chicago, the Packers, the Lions, Bucks, Panthers, and then like either the Rams, Seahawks, most likely 49ers. So that's kind of like maybe the Cowboys, but like I don't think any of us are really afraid of the Cowboys, especially with how atrocious that defense is. So like you wouldn't, I would say for our sake, I wouldn't want to see the 49ers. I'm not afraid of them, but that's just a tough team to play 3 times. And then I guess Lions, I'm not that afraid of the Packers, but then again, like for some reason we can't beat the LaFleur Packers outside of like 2018. So
I just don't want to go to Lambeau.
well,
Yeah.
they would be coming here. So it's playing in
Assuming,
SoFi.
right?
Yeah.
Well, assuming that all that works out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I don't really I don't want to see an NFC West team in the playoffs. I think it whenever you're playing a team that you play repeatedly. I mean, you guys know each other very well. I think the stakes feel so much higher. It feels harder in that type of environment. I don't really know who I'd like to see. I guess we'll see how it shakes out. I'm not necessarily entirely sold on Chicago. I've watched a lot of games this season. I live in Chicago, so I'm very familiar with that team. And they win a lot of games. I mean, a win is a win, but they win a lot of games that are kind of head scratchers, kind of come down to the wire. They don't feel like a team that's going to compete
Very fluky team.
yeah,
Very
as hard
fluky
in the
team.
playoffs. Yeah, so I think that like if I'm choosing, I'd like to see Chicago in the playoffs. I don't know. It's so weird. It's weird. Anything can happen, the rest of the season to see how it shakes out. But I do think, the Rams need to try and win out, as much as possible to try and get themselves in a really good spot.
Yeah, I forgot. The Giants had a blown game against them.
Yeah, I mean the Bears
Barely
didn't
beat the
really. I
Vikings.
mean the Bears haven't played a whole lot of great teams. That's the other thing too. I mean, you look at their schedule, and
They beat the
they
Eagles.
beat the Eagles, but the Eagles have been kind of not great over the
Yeah.
last several weeks. So yes,
They
they
haven't
have.
been great the entire year. Like some of those wins, you go back and look like, oh, you beat the Cowboys. Anyone can score on the Cowboys. You beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are having the worst year they've had in like 6-7 years. The Eagles, and I said this even when they were like 4-2 or 5-2. I was like, the Eagles do not look good. You use your eyeballs. I mean, like Alexa said, a win is a win, but like sometimes you can tell these bad teams are just getting some beneficial bounces. And, when you stop having, basically, when you stop being able to false start every drive as much as you want, like, yeah, you're going to start losing some games, especially when you have a inefficient offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't it'll be interesting and you know, it's just the NFC North, because we were talking about like the Bears and the Packers and the Lions and all that. It's like the NFC North and the NFC West are actually two very similar divisions this year, and in terms of the fact that you've got three teams kind of duking it out at the top, right? You got like the Rams, the Seahawks, the 49ers, and then Packers, the Bears, and the Lions, and all those teams are like equally in the hunt. So I just find that interesting, but yeah, it is a little bit of a kind of going back, like losing the one seed to the Bears feels interesting to me.
I definitely think if you put any of the three 49ers, Seahawks, or Rams in the NFC North and you switch them out for like the Vikings, they would all win that division.
Yeah.
Personally, I just think the 49ers are a better team than all four of those teams. Not by a huge
Yep.
margin because of the defense, but
Yeah, I mean, I could see that argument for sure. The 49ers are really interesting this season to me. I was just talking about on Downtown Rams, somebody had asked us about like Brock Purdy. And I'm curious, I know that this isn't what this episode is about, but do you guys think that Brock Purdy is better than Mac Jones?
Zach,
I
you
don't
want to
know.
answer first?
I mean, I think Brock Purdy's he's a decent quarterback, and I think I just hate him because he's a 49er. I think that's probably just the way it
That's
is.
fair.
Just hate them with a passion. I don't. It's hard to describe, but I do like Brock Purdy kind of as a person, and I think he probably could have been somebody. Maybe, I don't know. I listened to the kind of the end half of your Downtown Rams podcast, and
Hmm.
I kind of agreed. I think you could put any quarterback in a Kyle Shanahan system, and I think they're going to be successful. I just think that, if Shanahan would have had his way and got Matthew Stafford, I think they would have been running the gauntlet the last 5 years. And, I think they might have had, the multiple Super Bowl appearances with Stafford. But, you're getting average to maybe above average quarterbacks, and you're making them look good.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing good to above average quarterbacks playing in a Shanahan system.
I mean, let's look at Minnesota. Like, people said the same thing about the Minnesota system, and it's been a dumpster fire at QB. Like, I do think Brock Purdy is a solid QB and a starter in the NFL. I just think he's a bottom 30 starter. And I think Mac Jones is like below average, like in that 15-20 range. I do believe he's better than Purdy. In my personal, I thought why he struggled in New England wasn't his fault at all. He had an atrocious line and he didn't have any weapons. And they spent 2 or 3 years just letting him get beat up, and like they didn't have anything. And he kind of got blamed for all of it. I mean, he didn't make it better, but very few NFL QBs can really elevate a team. That's only a select few. I don't think either of those guys are, but right now Mac Jones is the hotter hand, and I think it's like Minnesota. You should just, let's just all be honest and clear-minded about this and do the easy, straightforward thing that's right there. They should have kept Sam Darnold. I mean, it's just reality. Why change something that's already working? Like it's that meme from Family Guy. Oh, why should I take the boat when I can get a mystery box that could even be a boat? And it's like the same thing here. Like, you have someone who has your offense really going well in Mac Jones. Why would you switch from that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me, outside of the fact that you paid this guy and you don't want to admit that you made a mistake paying him, which we all knew that was kind of a mistake. But I don't know. I feel like people don't want to see the obvious, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I just bring it up just because, talking about like the NFC West and the playoffs and kind of where these teams fall. It's just been interesting to kind of see the quarterback play from all these teams. And I just find that situation fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford has been playing great this year. He won the NFC Player of the Month, Offensive Player of the
Hmm.
Month, so congratulations to him. And really, it takes a lot of fluke plays for Stafford to look bad. Now, the pick six was a mistake, and like, he is human, he does bleed, but it's been a great month and a great year, and probably the best we've seen of him in horns and probably in his career. And it's awesome to see, and it's such a weapon.
I do think that they're trying their best to make him MVP. I think him and McVay just have this in them that, now that I don't think it started off that way, but I think once they've gotten to, the last couple of weeks, I think they've now really trying to push the envelope to try to make this. Cause I've said this on the pod before. I think this is Stafford's last year. I feel like they're making it out to be Stafford's last year, with everything that's going on. His family goes to every single game, no matter where it is. It makes it kind of feel like they're trying to push everything they can for this to be the ultimate season.
So on that point, Alexis, real quick, I gotta pick your brain. Let's say we go have a deep playoff run, make it to Super Bowl, win or lose, he retires afterwards. Are you pro drafting a QB, trading up and using both first round picks to get a top 5 pick to draft a QB, or trading away our first round picks to get a vet QB that could be on the market? Where do you land there?
I have such a boring answer to this because I don't know. Because
Mm,
I've thought about it and I need to watch more of some of these quarterbacks. I have not watched as much as I'd like to this season in college football. Um, and just like I really don't know. I think it would depend. I believe the Rams really like Arch Manning. I don't know how they still feel about Arch Manning. I think I can say with almost 100% certainty that that was what the goal was. But I now am not sure where they stand in terms of drafting a quarterback, in terms of Stafford. I'm not entirely like I've thought about it and I'm not entirely convinced Stafford retires after this season. I think it would depend on a lot. I think it would depend on if they won a Super Bowl and how the rest of the season looks. But I also
mm.
so I think that there's is a very big chance he continues to play next season as well. I also think it depends on who becomes available in the off season. Like a lot of people seem to believe that like Joe Burrow is an option.
The
I'm not
Bengals just do crazy stuff just because they are the Bengals.
They do. So like I think it'd be so fun if Stafford retired to get Joe Burrow. I just do not believe there's a world that that happens. Personally, I mean, but again, as you said, the
Burrow goes
Bengals
to
can do,
Cabo. Just
yeah,
saying.
yeah, crazier things could happen. I don't, they did pay Higgins and Chase to stay in Cincinnati, and I think that they probably are going to want to keep them together, but who knows? I don't know what other option there would be. I know like some people are like Dak Prescott. I don't think that happens at all either. So I don't know. It's a boring answer. I wish I had like a really strong opinion about something that I could like make a case
Mm.
for, but I'm kind of in this phase where I'm like, let's just like feel it out because I don't know enough about these prospects yet. So I'm not sure.
What about Tua?
No. Personally,
No.
no. I've not ever been a Tua fan really. And just watching him play, and I also just even as of late, um, I don't think that's someone I want to take a gamble on.
I really think, I think Burrow is really the only option that I think McVay would really like in his tool belt. I don't see any of the other ones really meshing with Sean McVay or the collaboration or anything like that. I think Burrow is kind of it as if you're looking at the current veterans, the current starters out there right now. If we're going to hypothetical world.
Yeah, it would only be that, like Kirk Cousins, which no, thank you. I would rather take a rookie in the third and just see what you got. Like personally, that's how I look. Anyone who's like mid level, so to say, in QBs, I'd much rather just take a shot at a young QB in the second or third round and just see if he has the magic. He most likely doesn't, but I don't want to see 8 and 9 personally. I would rather crash and burn and get a high pick, or like maybe you strike gold like a Lamar late in the first round or something like that. Jackson Dart. So Jackson Dart would have been. Do we want to quickly and touch? Do you guys think they would have taken Jackson Dart if the Giants didn't draft him? Do you
I do
think
not.
you think they would have still traded back?
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
yes, I do think they would have. And I also have to admit I was wrong about Jackson Dart. I wasn't like the biggest I wasn't like a hater, but I wasn't somebody who was as
Mm.
maybe high on Jackson Dart. And he's been great. So, I think he's proved me wrong, but I don't think that the Rams were ever really that interested in a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, you think a lot of that smoke, there was just no fire there, because like that was a pretty heavy rumor mill about Dart to the Rams. It's part of the reason why the Giants wanted to trade up
Mm.
in front of us.
I mean, they could have certainly explored it. It also could have been them purposely trying to make it seem like they were interested in Dart to trade back, but I don't know. It would have been interesting
Mhm.
though, like to see Dart sit behind Matthew Stafford. I think that could have been interesting. Um, but I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't think that they were going to go for a quarterback either. You have Stafford currently, and you have Garoppolo, which I think is probably the best backup you have in the league right now. So I don't think they were in a current rush. I think they wanted to wait it out. And you still got Stenson Bennett.
Yeah.
Still got him.
I think they would have picked him. The only exception would have been like if there was one of the wide receivers they wanted, or basically I think they were going to draft Mbuka. I think that's who they really wanted, and he just didn't fall. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were surprised the Bucks took him where they took him.
Yeah, I mean, we know they wanted Tet. That came
Mm-hmm.
out, Carolina ends up getting him. They wanted to trade up for him, the Rams. So I think
Yep.
once that happened, they kind of were just content to sit. Um, and then Atlanta just gave him such a good offer, really.
I still can't believe we have that first. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Someone said, "What about Baker Mayfield?"
The Bucks are keeping him. They're not going to trade
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, but I
That,
mean, when we're talking about the hypothetical world of Joe Burrow, I don't really think Bengals are going to actually give him up. But
Well, no, that I would say Baker's happy there. He's not going to request a trade. You could see world where Burrow is just like, I'm done with this. Like you can only take so much of a organization that literally doesn't care about its
But do you
players.
think Baker wants, if he had the option to go back with Sean McVay over Bowles, do you like?
I don't think like if his contract ended and the Bucks, let's say the Bucks drafted like they did what the Giants did, and they like drafted a young QB to sit behind them, and they are actively planning his succession plan. Like maybe then, but that I don't think the Bucks are going to do that. Like Baker's not old; he's playing great. He hasn't been the issue with the team this year. It's been injuries, so. I think Baker is not a realistic option personally. Jameis Winston is like a realistic option. Brock Purdy, if the 49ers end up cutting him, they wouldn't trade him, but you could see a world where they cut him. But
Anyways,
yeah, and maybe Goff, like potentially, but I don't think the Lions will want to get rid of him.
I think that bridge is burnt.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
Goff is
I
a
agree, but it's more likely than Baker.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly, for what I can't think of what Baker's contract is right now, honestly. So I don't, I'm assuming he's still under contract through next season. So it would have to be a trade situation unless I'm mistaken, or he would get released, which I don't see happening. Um, I don't know. I think Baker would happily play with Sean McVay again, but I think also, he does like Tampa and where he's at, and he's kind of found his groove there. Um,
Sam Darnold will be a free agent.
Baker has one more year.
yeah.
So Baker a year from now, Sam Darnold would be a free agent. Would you guys entertain that?
I'm not. I mean, I know it sounds crazy to say because he has had a really good year. I'm not. I'm not a massive Sam Darnold fan. But hey, from Sam Darnold's perspective, if you can't beat him, he always has a lot of problems with the Rams. So maybe I'm sure he'd love to come to the Rams so he doesn't have to play them anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't like pressure, and so he won't have
Mm.
to deal with that against us. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what direction that goes, and there'll be a lot of fun off-season pods. I know you guys are looking forward to recording. But just some final notes on this game. I guess Zach, you can go first, and then Alexis can take it from there.
For the Arizona game? Is that what we're talking about?
For the final notes on Panthers, then we can touch on the Arizona game.
No, I don't really have anything else other than, like I said, I think the Rams, this isn't a game that it was unfortunate that we had the 3 turnovers, but other than those small things, which they are big things, but the Rams offense really played well. They went up and down the field, easy peasy. The defense, yes, they gave up way too many yards, and they let them stay on the field way too long. But I feel like that's what they've done all year. Um, I just wasn't. Usually after a loss like this, I would have felt terrible and like, what are we doing? I didn't really feel that way. I thought there was a couple mistakes that just led us off course, and all things that could be corrected for the future week. So as much as it sucked to lose, this is one of the losses that I didn't feel like terrible the rest of the weekend about.
Yeah, I think all things considered, looking at this game, I mean, this was admittedly a game that I thought we should have won. I felt and feel that we are a better team than the Panthers, on paper and in execution. But it was just a day that I felt like the Rams, just for a lot of different reasons, just did not show up in the way that they typically do. It happens. It's frustrating. This is only their third loss of the season, right? So they haven't had very many losses, but, in a rainy weather game on the East Coast against a team that really showed up and they play well at home. But I felt like Carolina did a really good job of preparing, to play the Rams, and so I do have to give Carolina credit. And to only lose by 3 points when our defense, I think, just really didn't have a ton of answers for Carolina's offense. It sucks. It's unfortunate. I won't pretend like we shouldn't have won that game because I believe we should have. But at the end of the day, I think, these games happen in the NFL, and, hopefully the Rams can shake it off and correct some of those minor things going into Arizona.
Yeah, I agree with all of your guys' points, and it's definitely one of those games where, like Zach said, when I walked out, I wasn't angry, I wasn't frustrated. I was like, you make those mistakes like that, you have those turnovers. Most teams don't win with three turnovers. So the fact we were in the game, I'm happy that the boys kind of showed resilience enough to stay in the game and then completely collapse, because we've seen that in past years where they have some like kind of roadblocks, they hit them, and then the team just collapses
It,
after that in the third and fourth quarter.
this game did it reminded me a bit of the Titans game in 21, where Stafford threw, two pick sixes, and it was a bad game. But the difference between that game and this game is that the offense fought back. They never felt like they were going to lose. You always felt that they were going to make a comeback. And so that's what I see, the night and day difference between that game, which felt similar. Um, a game that we should have won but lost. But then I think that also helped catapult us to, what the team needed to be to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So we move on, going out to Arizona, another road game. And we are not going against Kyler Murray. He has been soft benched. He was benched. Like, I think everyone can be honest. Jacoby Brissett. I know all three of us expected to be talking about Jacoby Brissett at the beginning of December, right before Christmas, and how he has looked good. I mean, offensively, their problems hasn't really been on offense in the last 4 or 5 weeks. What do you guys think of the Cardinals?
I think, they've struggled, right? They're at the bottom of the NFC West. They've had kind of this quarterback question. They've had a lot of injuries. I mean, going into this
Yeah.
game Sunday, they're very banged up, kind of across the board. So, that's going to be, I think, interesting to see how they kind of try to overcome some of those losses. But they got guys like Trey McBride, who's a really great tight end, very high. I was high on him in the draft. Have been has I've been high on him in his NFL career. I really like watching him play. It's unfortunate it's for a division rival, but I think he's a very, very good player, very talented guy. So he's someone that I could see potentially giving the Rams trouble if, Brissett's able to kind of find a rhythm with him. They've got Michael Wilson, who's a very underrated receiver. So, they've got those guys, at the running back position, they'll try to get Bam Knight involved. Um, but yeah, I think with this Arizona team, I think the problem they have is they just don't have enough. Like they don't have as complete of a team as I think they're going to need to have to be able to compete with teams like the Rams on paper, obviously any given Sunday, but you look at them going into this game, it just doesn't feel like they have enough to get over those holes that they're missing right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's. Oh, sorry, Zach.
no, this is a 3-9 team. They're out of the playoff contention. You bench your starting quarterback. You have 9 players on your injury report already listed as out. Um, obviously NFL, any given Sunday. We saw that this past week. The Panthers also had a few of their players that in their secondary that were out, and look what happened there. But I think you're right, Alexis. It's on. They just don't have enough. You can be without 1 or 2 players, but what are they on their 3rd or 4th string running backs now?
I think they're Amari DeMarcado is coming back. They opened the window for Trey Benson, but I don't think they're actually going to play him.
He's actually out on the injury report. So he is officially out. You don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. You don't have Dortch. I do think McBride too. I think I do agree with you, Alexis. I think he has also been that factor in the Rams games where it has been a good battle. It's because of McBride. So I could see them really trying to utilize him, but at the same time, I think the Rams are going to try to play to cover him as best they can.
Yeah, but that's also when we've had like really, really like worse NFL linebacking cores in the entire league, right? Like, so I feel like this year is a little bit different. Our linebacking core it's not like elite, but it is a lot better than in years past. But I think it's a good point. I actually think their offense is better when Marvin Harrison Jr. is out. They have been trying to force feed him the ball in some of these games, and is maddening because Michael Wilson's just been a better receiver this year. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, Alexis, but I feel like they just have been trying to kind of like prove that value, that first round talent of Marvin Harrison. It just hasn't been working.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marvin Harrison is a more talented receiver than Michael Wilson, but I think that what he has fallen victim to, and you pointed this out, is when you're trying to force a ball to a receiver, and we've seen that happen in the past, right? It was kind of like there's a period of time where like Stafford, I think, did this with Cooper Kupp for a little bit. When you're trying to force the ball to a receiver, it just sets them up for failure when you start to kind of overdo it. And I do think, maybe you're right. They've tried to maybe prove something with Marvin Harrison Jr., who was very good, but it does feel like he was force fed a little bit. And Michael Wilson, I just think is underrated in general. I think he's a very good receiver, and I think that he is their best receiver right now, with the injuries and. I think in the passing game, it's really going to come down to Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. I don't know who else they're going to be able to get that level of production from, and it'll be very interesting to see how the Rams match up against McBride because, as you guys have pointed out in the past, McBride has been kind of a problem for the Rams, and we have a
Yeah,
different linebacking core now, so we'll see. But I do suspect that McBride will be able to achieve some level of success. Hopefully not enough. But
he's
he's so
great.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that like you have to kind of just expect he'll be able to do something.
How about you, Ashton? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like their defense, like their defensive line, like can get it's a weird team because I feel like they did get better from last season, but all their good additions just haven't stayed healthy. And that D line was better, and you saw in the first few weeks but with the injuries and the inability to stay healthy, that defense just it can't stop a lot of people, and it struggles very mightily. And then that offense, well, I do think it's better with Brissett. It's still not dynamic and elite, and it definitely can sputter at points. And they don't have a running game because their back end running backs aren't the best. Zonovan Knight or Bam Knight, not the best runner. Like as a RB3, he's decent, okay, but you don't want him as your RB1. And they just aren't getting it done on the ground, and it's forcing a lot of pressure on Brissett, who has, given the situation, done pretty good, given everything that's going on. And so it's going to be all McBride and Wilson. And if the Rams can kind of lock those two down, I would be surprised to see anyone else have a great game.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have to get pressure to Brissett. I mean, they have to get to him, and they have to hit home. I think, they're going to try to do some quick screens over to McBride to try to, to make some moves. But this defense is going to have to be more consistent than they have in the last couple of weeks of, really putting the pressure on. You don't always have to go and, get the sack or whatever. It'd be great. But we need to get pressure enough that they're, he's making missed throws. Because I do think, Brissett is actually, he's a decent quarterback. I watched him when he was here in Indy. He was successful, and he's pretty successful when he is starting. He just always gets punted back to being a backup. So he is efficient. What?
He's like Jimmy G.
I think he's not as good as Jimmy G, and that's,
he's efficient. He can run your offense. Things aren't going to fall off the rail. That's what I kind of mean.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. No, I agree. I think he's a good backup quarterback, and but I think he can get a little bit panic mode if you see the Rams rush come at your face.
Well, I think that's going to be a big key.
I was just going to say quickly that's something that the Rams still haven't figured out, and we don't have to worry about it with Brissett, but mobile QBs running for first downs out of the pocket. And we kind of, I thought we were going to get past this from last year, and this was a big issue, was mobile QBs being able to penetrate, go straight through these holes, and they can't maintain that pocket and collapse it on the mobile QBs. And we haven't faced as many of them as we did last year. Didn't even see Lamar this year, but I feel like that's something that our D-line has to get better about, because that costed us a lot of first downs in the Carolina game a few times, 3 or 4.
Do you, Alexis, do you think that we're going to get a Kilo back to closer to his 100% start than he was this past week?
I think so. I think that he probably wasn't 100%, even this week. And also, like, it's got to be hard coming back, like, just cardio wise as a corner when you spend that much time out. Like, even if like your physical injury is like healed itself, just getting back in game speed and trying to adapt and trying to, figure that out, I have to imagine is insane. So I think so. I think that we'll see some more from him.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Darius Williams also seeming to be out this week. I think Sean McVay said that today. It's going to be necessary. Rams also will not have Tutu Atwell again this week. They are not going to reactivate him from the IR. So, guess we'll see more Xavier Smith, which he had a really good game against Carolina. So I hope he can keep up that momentum.
Oh yeah, great game. I think it's his best game of his career. Right? So, credit to him.
It has, but I mean, again, going back to, I think what Alexis, when they mentioned on their Downtown Rams podcast, was like, really though, it seems like one of the, the 3 wide receivers keeps making a big play. So it's, it's not consistently one person. Mumfield has had his week, Xavier Smith has had his week, things like that. So it just keeps rotating on who's going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it sucks because you can imagine like Devontae making these elite catches, and he just hasn't done it for us. And you even saw him do that last year, and he's been great for us. So it's just nitpick, but it's just some of those third and fourth down clutch catches. You just wish if he makes those, and it makes a big difference in the game. So hopefully we can get him back to more prime self. But
hey, as long as he just keeps catching touchdowns, I'm good with it. If he's just our touchdown magnet, I'm happy with his performance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the Rams really don't have, a true wide receiver 3 now. Where I think you kind of see some I feel like a lot of teams now in the NFL, you've got your duo, and then you've got like that trusty wide receiver 3, but Tutu Atwell, like that, in my opinion, was supposed to be Tutu Atwell. And now we haven't seen that. So, you've got kind of like a rotation. I think then it was, oh, well, maybe it'll be Jordan Whittington, but we haven't used Jordan Whittington, a lot. And we've started using so many of our tight ends, I think, like this, you wide receiver 3. You could have argued earlier in the season it was Kyron, right? Because like the first half of the season, Kyron is really active in the receiving game. You look at games where he was catching some touchdowns and all that, and it just, the Rams haven't, I don't think they figured out who is that guy for them yet. I think in theory it's supposed to be Atwell, but he's not playing right now.
Well, it's just crazy.
They would. Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say Ferg. Like, you think they would try to do something more with Ferg and involve him, and it felt like for a week or two, like, oh, they're gonna start involving him more in the offense, and he was making big plays. And I feel like he's had two games where like he had passes he should have caught, and they've kind of gone away from him because of that.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up about Ferguson. It's just like, it just doesn't seem like he's being either fully utilized or he's not integrated well enough into the system. Yes, they can get off, their personnel, their personnel packages that Sean McVay wants, but he's made some pretty big dropped passes that should have been pretty easy for him to get. I think there was a couple that might have been behind him, but I just don't think that he is fully accustomed to Sean McVay's offense.
Yeah.
This is a good week though for him to test that theory. Get him involved more.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to see the team come out and have fire and spirit, and like kind of be a little pissed off that they lost that last game, and take it out on the Cardinals. That's what I want to see.
I think the defense will do that for sure.
They were getting cooked.
Cooked. I hope they come out hot. I hope they do. And I hope that they have a very solid game. I think they need that after Carolina.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. Alexis, do you want to plug some of the stuff that you do?
Well, I'm the co-host of the Downtown Rams podcast. So we, talk about the Rams over there as well. And, if you guys want to check that out, definitely feel free to check that out. And then I am on X at the Alexis Kraft, where I talk about the Rams a lot as well.
Yes. Always great content from you and then you and Jake on the Downtown Rams stuff. So, really, again, appreciate you for joining us today. You can find us at youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. Please like and subscribe this video. It really means the world. We need about like 35 to hit our next level of subscribers. So please do that. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please go there. We're also on X at East Coast Rams. You can find Ashton at RamFanAshton1 and me at Zach Mayer. We're on Instagram at East Coast Rams Pod. And then if you want to find us on Blue Sky, you can find us there as well. So appreciate you guys. We will talk to you guys after the game on Sunday. Whose house? Rams house.